Welcome back to the Ignore the Tablet podcast, the only FPL podcast on the entire internet, hosted by me. My name is Devin. Was it a good week? Not so much, but we are reacting to Gameweek 23. I had to think about that. And despite the fact that I nearly forgot we just finished Gameweek 23 and are heading into Gameweek 24, I am going to discuss a wild card on this video / podcast. It will be a vibes-based wild card. Players that I just think off the cuff, in my mind's eye, in my FPL brain, that I think will do well on a wild card. I know wild cards can be very popular. That's why we're really going to do 2 this week. So this podcast is going to be more vibes based and players that I think would fit well in a good Game Week 24 wild card. But for the next podcast, we're going to do the stats, we're going to optimize, we're going to do all that algorithmic BS, and we're going to see how my vibes based wildcard FPL team matches up against the stats based. I'm guessing they're going to be pretty similar just because the way that I tend to choose teams tend to be based off of the stats, but we'll see. So this will be a good test of all that. So because first of all, if you can't tell, I am exhausted. Work's been crazy. So please just set the bar so low because my brain is not functioning. But on top of that, I want to be kind of snappy through this. So let's first just jump into my team, see how I did for Game Week 23, and then we could start moving on to some of the more main course topics. Okay, so here we are, Game Week 23. If you're watching this on YouTube, you will see how I did, which is not so great. I got a 5-point red arrow. In the end, it ended up not being as bad as I thought it might have been. Like before the Everton match, where basically 2 of my 3 differentials played, it could have been really good actually if that was a clean sheet as I predicted, I think. Yeah, I did predict a clean sheet in that one. If that was a clean sheet, that would have been actually probably a green arrow for the week, because kind of my rivals in the same positions, Raya and name the Arsenal defender, I had Pickford and Tarkowski. If we would have added, 8 points overall for 2 clean sheets, that would have been a green arrow almost certainly. But I knew it wasn't going to be good when the vibiest of the vibe players did well. And we saw that with Rodgers, 8-pointer, Wilson, 10-pointer. And I knew at that point when the Wilson goal went in, I was like, this isn't going to be a good week for me. This is not going to be good. And ultimately it wasn't. 5-point red arrow that brought my rank from, and it was 38 points overall. Is that accurate? Jesus, another very low scoring week. But it brought my rank from 43k to 50k. So what, 7,000 rankings, 6,000 rankings. At the end of the day, it's not that big a deal. I keep fluttering above 50k and around that area. So I think this is kind of the opportunity for my team to move on and do better, and hopefully the stats kind of help inform my decisions. So yeah, let's just run through the team and how it did. Ultimately, we know it didn't do so hot. So as I mentioned, I had Pickford in goal. He got 3 points. That was kind of a banker that I was hoping for. Leeds at home. Was kind of hoping for a clean sheet there. Ultimately, it didn't come. I wasn't able to watch the match. Just a crazy work schedule recently. So I can't really speak to it, but I'm curious to see what the stats say. I don't know if we'll have time. If we do have time, I want to take a look at just the base level understat, underperformance, overperformance type stuff. But needless to say, Pickford 3 points. That was better than Raya's 1. Did he get 1? Yeah, Raya got 1. So as far as I'm concerned, that's a 2-point bonus. Elsewhere, we had Mukiele with 4 points. He got an assist in that one. I cannot believe the amount of goals. What did I predict that match? How did I predict that match to go? I predicted a 0-0 in the West Ham Sunderland game, and it was far from that. I think it ended 3-1 or 3-2 or lots of goals. I was way off base. Gabriel, 1-pointer. Fine, everyone has Gabriel, and that was not an expected result either. Gehi with a 6-pointer, that was probably the most I expected from that. out of all the players, the most banker of points, I think this week was the Gehi clean sheet. Tarkovsky got 4 points, as we already mentioned. Saka with 2. Maybe we'll talk about that in a second, but yeah, not happy about that. Although he did play very well. That was one match I did sit down and watch. It was the match of the weekend. It was a thriller, but wow. The Arsenal bottle job, it begins. Next up, Phil Foden, 1 point. This is what absolutely killed me this week. The Phil Foden 1-pointer, the Erling Haaland 1-pointer, which I capped into 2 points. Apparently there was a leak. I saw some like leak adjacent stuff the night before that I could have acted on, like training formations that Pep was using that I think ended up being pretty accurate. But I think there was a deadline, there was a leak closer to the deadline that was like, yeah, Foden's not starting, Haaland's not starting, play somebody else. I don't even know if I was awake at that point, which clearly I wasn't. If I was awake and I got that news, would I have even switched? I don't even know, just because I'm so, the leaks can be so unreliable sometimes. And like, what was my, like, I would have made a transfer, I guess, Grealish to Ismaila Sarr probably, just because I don't have really any money in the bank, and I don't think that would have gotten me anywhere anyways. So the amount of maneuverability was not good. It was just kind of a bad outcome. A lot of people in the same position, so it ultimately didn't hurt me that bad, but the more informed, engaged managers might have been able to gain a few points off that. Enzo Fernandez with the 8-pointer, the goal from the penalty kick. Very happy about that. Very happy that Cole Palmer continues to not be on the pitch. The guy can't stay fit. They're managing him. I think, just spoiler alert for the wild card, I probably won't have Palmer anywhere near any wild cards because he just hasn't sustained fitness this season to give me the confidence that he can not only stay on the pitch, but then move to the level and get consistent returns for the price that he is. And probably you could say that about Saka, Salah, and every premium this season, but I'd rather have a player that I know is generally going to start and not have injury concerns than a player that is just too much of a headache and a transfer down the road. So not good. Bruno Fernandes, 5-pointer, probably could have been more. I thought he had a very good performance against Arsenal. Maybe I would have captained him if I had woken up and saw Haaland wasn't going to play, but ultimately, why would I do that? Already talked about Haaland, 1-pointer off the bench, not great. I guess it makes sense in hindsight if they're going to bench Haaland for a fixture, it's going to be a banker like Wolves, especially playing at home. And then Thiago got 2 points, could have potentially had more, but yeah, that it is what it is. And if you sum all of those totals, you get 38 points. And not good enough for a green arrow this week. So not happy, but it is what it is. Dubravka with 5 points. Wow, who would have predicted that? Grealish injured, Lacroix with 1 point, and Obi with 0. So that was my bench. And I just want to take a very short departure before we get into the wildcard stuff. And I want to take a look if mine own eyes are seeing an overperformance on the level that I think is at play here with some of the vibes players. So I'll name this section the vibes players. There will be chapter markers. If you want to skip the vibes players section and jump to wildcard, feel free to do so. That will be in the description. But yeah, I want to take a look at specifically Rodgers and Wilson, because those are the vibiest, I think. But Semenyo, and for the record, for anybody listening at home on just podcast, no video, I've got Understat pulled up and I've just got it sorted by goals. I want to go from the highest goal scorers so far this season, go all the way down to see what level of overperformance they're at. So on the first page of Understat, we can see the biggest overperformer by quite a lot is Antoine Semenyo. He scored 11, expected goals saying he should be closer to 8. I guess not surprising, but also kind of surprising. The guy takes a lot of shots, so he's tended to be more of an underperformer where he takes a lot of shots, not as clinical. This season, he has been more clinical. That's why he's been such an FPL asset. So interesting. And that's on page 1. Let's see what page 2 has to say. Oh, and I guess really quick while we're on page 1, biggest underperformers we could see on page 1, not overall. I'm not going at it from this angle, but Mateta, he should have 5 more goals than he's actually scored. So he's scored 8. XG saying he should have around 13. That's criminal. And kind of similar, but to a lesser degree, Ollie Watkins, he's got 8. XG saying he should have about 10.5 to 11. So yeah, very interesting. Page 2 is where our first vibes players are coming into play. So we got Bruno G, ultimate vibes player. He's got 8 goals. XG saying that he should have around 5. And especially for like defensive midfielders, this is not common. Like you see overperformers maybe a little bit closer to the goal, consistent overperformers. Like I'm thinking Jamie Vardy, Human Son. I believe Harry Kane is a pretty typical overperformer. You don't see him deep in midfield taking pop shots and getting screamers week after week, but alas, he has 8 goals in 21 appearances. XG saying he should have closer to 5. And likewise for Harry Wilson, as I expected, he has 8 goals. XG saying he should have around 3.5, 4. So he's basically doubled his output for XG. Yeah, that's what I expected. And where is Morgan Rogers? Not as bad. Overperformed. Remember, I'm brain dead. Overperformed by 3 goals. So he scored 7. XG saying he should have about 4. And Krupi Jr. actually underrated overperformer. 7 goals from about 4 XG. Wow. So very interesting. And then on the flip side of the coin for underperformers, Enzo Fernandez, XG saying he should have around 9. He's only got 7. And Kevin Schade has 6 goals. XG saying he should have around 8. And that was basically the main highlights I wanted to look at. I mean, the biggest ones, Bruno G, Harry Wilson, Morgan Rogers, very popular in FPL. From a probability standpoint, we have to consider that this is, a kind of statistics-based podcast, or at least that was the foundation. From a probability standpoint, what is the likelihood those players continue to perform at that level such that they maintain basically scoring a goal from like half of a chance? Because that's basically what we see here. Because we go back, especially like a Harry Wilson, he's doubling his output from the chances he's creating for himself. So is he the best finisher in the world? Is he better at Messi or Ronaldo at putting the ball in the back of the net from, like 30 yards or however he's been smacking them from? Again, probability standpoint, probably not, but sometimes these things do happen because a little thing called variance happens and weird stuff can happen. And just to kind of skim through the rest, let's just kind of go through a couple more pages. On page 3, we see underperformers, and as we would expect, Bruno Fernandes and Evan Nielsen are the top of list, or the top of page 3 for that, for underperforming. That tracks. Bruno's missed 2 penalties. Evan Nielsen has been woeful in front of the net, but has created a lot of chances. So that's interesting. Page 4, we've got a bunch of overperformers, none to the degree of like Wilson or even like a Rogers, but Buendia, pretty big overperformer. Brian Broby, pretty big overperformer by, about 2 goals. Page 5, we'll cut it off at page 5 because the rest is probably pretty irrelevant. And Bukayo Saka, massive underperformer. XG saying he should have about 6.5. maybe 6 to 7 goals. He's only got 4. And the fact that he's given up some penalties, that's probably, I mean, you know, those are taken out of this obviously, but if he would have had that extra XG and a probable goal, he, you know, it would look a little less bad basically. Mohamed Salah underperforming. We expected that. So yeah. What do you guys think about overperforming and underperforming players? I think it's interesting to keep in the context of, especially like going into a wild card, because you never know when a player is going to fall out of form. It's very difficult to, you know, predict when a player is going to start form or finish form. I tend to just go off of, is a player consistently creating chances such that they're generating XG, they're generating XA, and over the long term, you would expect it to even out. Of course, it doesn't, because we've got pretty big variance in a lot of these instances. But yeah, something that I will be noting for my hypothetical vibes wildcard. So let's just jump into that. Why not? Okay, so this is my current team. We are on FPL.team, and just to run through the players to get a baseline, we've got Pickford, Mukiele, Gabriel, Gehi, Tarkovsky, Lacroix, Bukayo Saka, Phil Foden, Enzo Fernandez, Bruno Fernandes, collecting Fernandez's, Jack Grealish, Holland, Thiago, Obi, and Dubravka. So that's the starting point. I would, if I was going to play my wild card, there would be a lot of changes, I think. Although I haven't even like decided what I'm going to do yet, but that's kind of what I'm thinking off the top. And I'm deciding if I want to do this kind of like flow of consciousness or if I want to do it somewhat structured. I'm leaning towards flow of consciousness. If we have to start making cuts, we'll do that. But let's just jump to Fantasy Football Hub, which we looked at last week, to kind of look at the fixture difficulty rating. This is not perfect. It's not even based off of my ratings or rankings, which are not perfect either, but just to get kind of a wide landscape of what the fixtures look like and maybe teams to potentially target for the upcoming 4 or 5 game weeks that you want to really nail for this wild card. And unsurprisingly, the top few teams, although that one's kind of surprising to me, but Bournemouth is at the top of this list for the next 6 fixtures. I can see why. They've got Wolves away, Villa home, Everton away, West Ham away, Sunderland home, Brentford at home. Generally not bad. Chelsea second in the list. They've got West Ham at home, Wolves away, Leeds at home, Burnley at home, Arsenal away. That's the tough one that probably knocked them. And Aston Villa away. Third place is Liverpool. I don't know if I personally on a wild card, I don't think I would be bringing in a single Liverpool player. Definitely not. Like for a wild card, I really want to focus on like 5 to 6 fixtures, but really you want to front load a lot of that because unless you have like a really special player that you have had for a while that has like gained value or whatever, basically I would prefer to like front load it and get a lot of the easy fixtures early, because you will build up transfers if your team doesn't pick up a bunch of injuries. So Liverpool I would not be focusing on for the wild card. Maybe game week 28 we'll take a peek at how they're doing. Maybe like an Ekitike comes back into the fold, but Liverpool I wouldn't even consider for a wild card. Aston Villa probably would. Would I go for Morgan Rogers on the Vibes team? Just flow of consciousness. Right now I'm thinking no. But I think he's going to be very popular on wildcard, and off a wildcard, I think he's going to be very popular. So Crystal Palace, I would consider. Manchester United, definitely consider. Like probably the top few teams I will be considering on a wildcard if I was playing one. But for everyone at home would be Bournemouth, Chelsea, Manchester United. Those would really be the teams that I would be considering, especially they've got a lot of good FPL assets, those teams. So it's like unlike Villa where it's basically concentrated on Rodgers, I wouldn't really go for their defenders. Then it's like Watkins maybe, but then they just signed Tammy Abraham, or they're almost done signing him. So it probably would just be Rodgers. Like who's going for John McGinn, or you know what I mean? Like, so yeah. Going through, Fulham's next on the list. I probably wouldn't, but a lot of people, if you've got Wilson, I would imagine you're just going to hold him, especially considering how well he's done recently. Everton, yeah, probably would consider. Burnley, just Dubravka. Sorry, Burnley fans. Sunderland, I probably would consider as well, but at that point, from those on, I'm not like focusing on them. They could be in the team depending on the player, obviously. Like Holland's going to be in the team, I'm telling you right now. But in terms of like focusing for a wild card and really trying to target particular players and teams, Bournemouth, Chelsea, Manchester United, those are going to pop in my team almost certainly. Okay, we're back to FPL.team, and this is what I've kind of come up with, and this, we're probably going to even make some changes from here, but this is like initial thoughts. The main targets I wanted to bring in: Mbeumo, Groupie Jr., and Senesi. So I dropped Lacroix, I dropped Jack Grealish, and I dropped Foden. And I think those are all upgrades Generally speaking, I think those are all upgrades. There are some, obviously I'm tight on money here in this scenario. So if you have less of a team value, there's a lot of changes you can make to make this team a little bit better. For one, you can just go from Saka to Rice. Let's go ahead and do that just so we can kind of cap it right there. I think that team is equally as good. It gives you a lot more maneuverability. I think you could go for, would I be going for roofs? Let's put roofs in there. I think I would flip back if I was playing wildcard now. If I, back when I made the change to go for Pickford, I kind of went for that risk, thinking that Pickford might be a better option in the second half of the season. But right now, I think the fixtures for Sunderland are pretty decent, and that Burnley at home is not bad. And I don't mind playing Dubravka, honestly. I think that he's been a little underrated, I guess for FPL purposes, who's underrating or overrating Dubravka, he's not really a factor, but he's been getting a ton of saves and save points, as we saw this past week where he got 5 points overall. Okay, Senesi coming in, I think it's a fixture play, right? Wolves, maybe bench him here, maybe even bench him here, but West Ham and Sunderland and Brentford, I would definitely want to play him there. We've seen that he's been like consistent defensive contribution guy, also not as much on the clean sheets, but he's had a little bit of attacking threat. That's when a lot of people brought him in at the beginning of the season. I think if I was on wildcard, I probably would have Senesi in here. Groupie Jr. would be a definite, just because he's such like a cheap bench option. You could always just throw him on the bench, and leading up to a potential like a bench boost or whatever, you're going to want to have somebody on the bench that's not going to get you 0 points like I have with Obi. So that was an obvious change. I think talking about Gehi, sorry if this is like completely schizophrenic, but talking about Gehi, I would probably keep him on a wild card just because I have so much value built up in him. It doesn't really make sense to move him on, but potentially a player I would consider, and this is a play for the potential double game week for Arsenal. You could do that this week. You could do that when it's, closer to the time that they actually have the double game week, which I think is potentially 26. Is that right? I don't know. Somebody fill me in on that, but I think it's 26 or 28. Either way, Arsenal have a very high probability of getting a double game week, and obviously you're going to want 3 Arsenal players for that, just because they're great FPL assets and double the points, more money. I don't know why I said that. But yeah, I think Jurriën Timber, Gabriel, Rice would all be good options for that. They're going to be fairly nailed. They're highly probable to play both, I would think, both fixtures. So, because again, the title race is heating up, the gap just shrunk a little. So, they're going to need to play their best players, and therefore I would expect Gabriel, Timber, and Rice maybe not Saka. So maybe Saka is a down, like it's better to downgrade him just because leading up to a double game week, even though Saka has had a little bit better underlying data than Rice. Rice is a hell of a lot cheaper and probably more likely to get starts just because now they have Madueke, who's taken some time. But yeah, I think I've said my bit on Arsenal. It's such common knowledge. People will almost certainly have 3 Arsenal players, and it's probably going to be some combination of Rice, Gabriel, Timber, Raya. Am I missing somebody? Probably not. So that's probably how it's going to go. And that's probably how I would play as well if I was on Wildcard. Enzo Fernandez is another like absolute dead cert in my team. Same likewise with Bruno Fernandes, likewise with Mbumo. I think basically this midfield minus Amad Diallo. And again, this is with the knowledge I just found out that Dorgoat, aka Ballon Dorgu, is out for 10 weeks. So he is not going to be an option on Wildcard. I think he would have been very, very popular on Wildcard, considering he just got the goal against Arsenal, considering he's playing out of position, all that good stuff. But I think Amad Diallo is a good, like, cheap option on the vibes test. Obviously, my main pick would probably be, where is he? Where is my boy? Am I going to have to search him because he's so far down? I'm mad. Ismail Assar at a very similar price. I think they've got good fixtures as well. That would probably be my pick, but I think like Amad Diallo is also a pretty good pick as well. Minutes are maybe a concern for him. So in that case, maybe go for Sar, but I think either are good. But you know, this 4 right here, and you can interchange Rice for Saka if you have the money. That would probably be like the most certain part of the lineup, I think. Forward line as well, because what else are you going to do? And with that, the defensive and goalkeeper is probably the most variable lineup where apart from Gabriel, you can basically have a whole hodgepodge of different players. Like if you really wanted to focus on this window and throw the value that you got on Gehi out the window, going from Gehi to a Chalobah, hitting those high notes, sorting by expected points. Chalobah is not popping on this list. What is going on? Do I have to really search this? Okay. Chalobah in for Mark Gehi. I have 1.8 in the bank, so assuming you have the funds, you should be able to afford a team like this. And then that looks good too. Like then you start getting into benching headache situations. Maybe you swap Thiago there, put him on the bench. Very good, solid bench, solid back line, solid midfield. I like this team a lot. I think this is probably where I'm going to cut it on the wild card because I don't want to tread too much on what I discuss in the next podcast, which will be more statistics based and less like go with the flow. But I think this is probably the team, and just I want to double check. Am I hitting the players that I'm targeting? Rodgers, I guess, is an option, but yeah, I guess so. If you had the money, you would put Rodgers in here, right? And that would be the alternative. Then you probably put him back in for Chalobah, maybe, or maybe Senesi. Yeah, you probably do something like that. 4-5-1. Anyone else? Bueller? Yeah, wouldn't want to go for Fulham. Wouldn't want to go for Liverpool. I'm feeling pretty confident this is the team. So with some of those alternatives, this is what I would probably go for on the vibesy basis. Robin Roofs, Mukiele, Gabriel, Chalobah, Timber, Senesi on the bench, Rice, Mbumo, Enzo, Bruno, Rodgers, Holland, Thiago, Krupi Jr., and Dubravka. So let's go ahead and change gears. Let's take a look at how my free hit scout team did against the official FPL scout team. And just to cut to the chase, I won this week for the first time in probably like a month, it feels like. But it's really funny. I completely forgot to like crop my team and put it on the Discord or whatever. But we have the video evidence because now that I'm on YouTube, we can go back and take a look at my team. And I'm actually just like literally on the YouTube video right now. I think my face is like obviously covered by what you're seeing on my recording now. But the funniest thing from that recording was like, Tottenham defenders, I don't rate any of them. They're probably going to concede, but I wouldn't be surprised if one or both scored. And what the hell happened? They both scored. I Nostradama'd your ass. So that ultimately was basically why I won this week. And that's how stupid FPL is. You get one wacky result where both center backs score a goal and get a combined 18 points. And that was essentially like half of my points, or a little less than half. I ended up with 46 points, I think, but just to run through the team, I ended up with Pickford, who got 3 points, Mukiele with 4, Dan Ballard with 2, Romero and Van de Ven with 11 and 7 respectively. I had to think about that for a second. Tarkowski with 4. That's right. Semenyo with 8, Foden with 1, Shada with 2, Erling Haaland with 1. I captained him, so 2, and then Thiago with 2 points. So that was my result. And then if we just take a look at how the free hit or the official scout team did, they got fewer points. So that means they lost. And for reference, if you're on YouTube, this is the team that they went with. They also went with Pickford. They went with Gabriel, who got 1 point, Chalobah with 4, Gehi with 6. Ultimately, I think that was probably a good one. I knew that was going to be a banker, so maybe I should have gone there. They went with Palmer, who didn't even play, Florian Wirtz with a 2-pointer, Semenyo with 8, as well as I did. Njai got 2 points. They went with the Vibiest, the Wilsons of the world, who got 10. So that was like most of their points right there in one player. Which I can't complain. One of my players got 11, so happens. They also captained Haaland, and they went with Thiago. Their total is 40 points according to this graphic, which I completely trust because it's on Reddit and I didn't do the math. So that means with my 46 point total, I won this week. So there will unfortunately not be a winner of the competition this week for whoever got the top point scorer in the mini league. Unfortunately, I'm not going to cash out this week, but as we've seen, I'm really, really bad at this and I should probably try harder, but I think it's fun if it's competitive and it's fun when I make dumb decisions as well. So we can all clown on me and my bad decisions. So yeah, let's go to the next segment because I think this one we're wrapping. And that is actually going to do it for the podcast because I've kind of run out of things to say. I have a lot more to say on the next podcast, which should be coming out before the Gameweek24 deadline, where I'm going to be going more into the stats and the decisions for why I would go for certain players in a wild card. I think that will be a popular topic, but generally just like planning for Gameweek24 and beyond, because if people have transfers, I've got 2 of them. I got 2 free ones. I will be using them most likely. Definitely 1 because I've got an injured player and my team could use some work. So this is like a really good turning point for people playing a wild card, for people who have transfers. It's an exciting time. So stay tuned for the next podcast. We'll be out before the Gameweek 24 deadline and I'll see you then. So take it easy. Bye.